So the first part I was going to go over a little program management, and I actually changed jobs about a few months ago now, 3 months ago. I'm not fully funded, but I am now partially funded at least to help with the program management side. So that's good news. But I don't have a budget or anything. So, but at least I am part of a person. So if there's programmatic things, I am going to be a focal point of trying to get things coordinated. And hopefully, one of my jobs actually is to find additional funding. So that's actually, I consider that one of the, within NASA. So if I can get some kind of sustainable funding. But one of the challenges there is when I first having some conversations with people, really got to figure out what is the, oops, went ahead. What is the, what is the CFS? So if I go to some management and say, oh, I need money to sustain this, I got to have some real clear picture to them of what I'm asking them to fund. So that's one of the challenges. And I'll show some ideas today that I've talked to multiple people about, but I'd love to get the general idea. But first, an announcement, because unfortunately we lost 2 key people just within the last 2 weeks. I guess this month, December 1st. So 2 charter members decided to move on to new positions, or I'm thinking. So they went for new jobs, and both of them were very instrumental in getting this working. Susie Strage's been chairing the CCB since its inception. She took a new job at Goddard. She's still at Goddard, took a new job. So she will definitely be missed. And I once saw the term with open source, like the benevolent dictator. And I think that actually, she was very good at, getting the consensus of the community. It's a difficult job. Every meeting was virtual, and you really got to have a good talent for that. She did a great job of getting things moving forward as a team. And then Greg Limes, he's a senior developer, and he was Mr. Git. So he did the Babelfish setup. That's an AIM server, and he did all the CM and the whole Git thing. So Chris Knight is kindly taken over that role. So. And we haven't filled the chair yet, so there will be a little gap in things. And maybe Chris will say, hey, I'll chair, I'll do Git, I'll do, I'm kidding. So we will have probably like a little breather here in terms of, so 6-6, and Joe will be, I don't even know, I guess, whether it was released, but I won't steal Joe's thunder. It is officially, but, so we're doing it real time here. So here's my agenda. What is the CFS? I did a quick backup because this does matter from a technical point of view. When we developed the product line, and it is a NASA product, so we got to meet NASA mission needs. So our life cycle, this is, I'm going to point her in. Yeah, so it's kind of the classical V, but quite almost a U. So we do have subsystem requirements, and so it's a life cycle approach to reuse. And then those have detailed requirements, and what this is showing is that they're parameterized. And then we go into the code, and then we have the unit test, and this is our verification side. The integration, we don't have reusable integration tests. We've talked about them, but we don't have them. And then we do have build tests. But the build tests we have are tied to what Goddard used, the assist work ground station. So those are not generalized either for the general public. So that's another one of the growing pains. So this was done as an in-house to Goddard. But now that we've gone open, there's definitely areas where there's challenges. And then you'll also hear about electronic data sheets, and that might help some of these challenges in becoming an open standard. And I think everybody's familiar with this, but I just kind of wanted to show it again, the level to anybody that's not. So we are a layered architecture, so we have our platform abstraction layer with the operating system abstraction, platform support package, which is things that are more tied to the board, the hardware board. Then we have the core flight executive, which is just the services for the application layer. And then we have an application library that's also reused, and that's CM'd with the core flight exec. And then we have the core flight exec has its own apps, which are basically a ground interface to the services. And then we have open source apps. And that's what we've collectively been calling the CFS. But I'm going to maybe, I don't know if I challenge that a little bit or how I want to say that. But so here's our current model. We kind of have the NASA bubble. So the CCB is just NASA centers. And they're the ones that take change requests. If you notice, there's not a line going this way. Right now the line was Susie would get emails from external people and then write a track ticket inside, and that's still where we are right now today. And then we'd make releases, and then actually the OSALs, PSPs, and CFE is bundled into a CFS release. And then the apps are over here. And the apps are a little fuzzy even in my mind as I stand here. So Goddard released them. They're on the Babelfish, but I'm not quite sure where all the track tickets get vetted. So, and that's kind of where, the CCB can't just keep taking new apps. So they can't be this app manager. And that's one of the things I want to try to present to break up a little bit. And there's other challenges. So now the responsibility is the user's got to assemble. They basically assemble a product. And that's asking a lot of a new user. Again, we didn't originate to be a product. So this is my view of, so okay, I got the core, what do I do now? And then what apps do I need? How do I send commands? How do I configure the system? How do I write a new app? So all these kind of things create this great, some assembly required. And so we're trying to get there. Actually, this one I could skip. We've already gone through that as a grassroots effort. So I thought I'd make a little analogy here. This is kind of, so if you look at the phone world, so we're a single organization that have proprietary vertical product line. And I kind of made an analogy here. So in the smartphone world, you got software-only platform, you got hardware and devices included, then you got closed source software, and then open source. So in a sense, Goddard was the Apple world where we controlled the whole vertical stack. And even within our world, we didn't control the hardware platform, which is one of the reasons we abstracted it, because the software group doesn't get to dictate. But now we're really moving to the Android model where we're open source and the platforms, can change as well. So what does that mean programmatically? Use the word complementer. So that's anybody that sells a product or service to complement the product or services of another company. So in that world, mobile phones, they have hardware platforms, they have system integrators, device manufacturers, and application developers. And we're very similar. I mean, we have our hardware platforms and operating systems. That's kind of our abstraction. Then we have our system integrators, we have our spacecraft manufacturers, and our application developers. So in a sense, a lot of times, for like Goddard, that'll be an in-house mission. We'll perform those duties. And then we're also trying to pull together applications and the hardware platforms to make a spacecraft. So what does that mean so now we got that transition we want to do. So here's the current state. And I think we've kind of touched on some of this. So we have the scope of the CCB is really we haven't really defined that scope. I mean, we've just kind of evolved and things have just happened. So, and I think that's causing confusion of who owns and maintains which components. We have limited resources, so we definitely can't just keep taking new products in. And it also does versioning complexities. And I'll give an example so we have this great performance monitor tool. And so we have two of them actually in there. But if they release a new version, do they wait for the next CFE version, or do they, they're not they're all tied together CM-wise. And I'm not sure if there's a new version. And who actually maintains it. So where do you write a trouble ticket for that? And we're also got people inside and outside do not know how to collaborate. And that's, we're missing opportunities. And some of that's being a government organization and some of the legalities we got to deal with. So in a sense, back to my other slide, we're not positioned to really enable the complementers, the people that can make us better. So we need a clear plan, and I kind of mentioned I need that plan too if I'm going to solicit, or we all need it if we're going to get funding. So you can groan, but I actually, I presented this last year, and it's actually held the mission statement. So some people, oh God, so now I've been away from technology way too long. I'm writing a mission statement. But actually, it did help. And I stole parts of this from Eclipse Foundation to try to really just think of what we're trying to do. So I maintain, advance, and support a NASA Class A/B open source flight software frame, and I called it a framework. And I said NASA because we have to still meet our NASA goals. I mean, that goes back to that we got to have all the artifacts that let us have the verification we need to have. So I'll define framework, so we need to define that. Then I had a second bullet, define and release architectural components and interface specifications to promote an open source community an ecosystem of complementary products, capabilities, and services. What that sentence is trying to say, so this is, again, is NASA's mission statement. We're not here to do all those things. We're here to create those interfaces and specs to let other people complement our framework. And that's where I think we can now, this coming year, really do a better job. So, and I've learned this lesson over the last 2.5 years. We're just not wired as a government organization to really be. We're good at creating the standard, and I think our job is more the API and managing that. And that's what I'm going to get into is the framework. So the framework would be, there's 3 components to what I'm going to present. The framework is so basically it's those 2 API layers, and it's the specifications that go with that. And then they would be controlled and maintained by the CCB. So then we have distributors. Distributors are going to collect the apps and the platform packages and make a distribution for people. Now there's challenges here. And that's part of what this workshop, I'm hoping to have a lot of conversations throughout the week. But there's certain markets. So Goddard could be a distributor. Again, we got to get funding to somehow distribute. I'd like us to be one where we distribute our open source apps and say, we maintain these and now we make this distribute, and it runs on these platforms. But that has funding challenges too. But the first funding, I'm hoping to get, I'd love to get NASA funding for this, the framework. Say, we control these APIs and the 2 layers, and it's got a stable product lifeline. And then we also have, down here is the platform, and then we'll have catalogs. And unfortunately, I really hope to have it open today, and Gary Smith just walked in. So he's helping with, we have a core flight system website, and that's run by the SHREC organization, which is a Center for High-Speed Computing, University of Pittsburgh. It's a consortium. So we didn't quite get the catalogs, but we've got some drafts that we're trying to get, and we can work on them throughout the week, of where we have the platform abstractions, the applications and tools, and distributors catalogs out there. So a new user could go out and get a distribution. So that's in the works. So those are the 3 components: the framework, the distributors, and the catalogs. So the way this now works is, so NASA would release the framework. We have the catalogs here, and the distributions. A mission could still assemble their own distribution in a sense if they don't want to take one that's out there. And right now, obviously, we don't. I'm calling a couple things distributions, which I'll show you later, but I don't even know if the people that built them know they built the distribution. So the distribution would actually be an operational product. So the CCB is not responsible for producing and maintaining an open source product as an operational thing. They're more the spec. And I could almost call it a reference implementation, but it's pretty much the implementation. Thank you. So I'll let you look at that while I get a little water. Thank you. So this is a lot like, it's actually similar to the Linux world. So if the CCB outputs a framework, then this example has a Goddard being a distributor. So we could distribute our open source apps as a distribution. And again, that puts the burden on us to maintain those apps as well, in which we actually have a software maintenance group that does a lot of on-orbit maintenance, and we're in discussions with them to see if that's a role they could play. And then there's actually a small sat organization at Goddard that's being formed, and and again, this is just proposals or possibilities. So they may want to tailor for the CubeSats that we do their own distribution, and whether they make that open or closed could be their decision. But they may want to maintain. But we'd also want a feedback loop. These could almost be technology paths. I mean, this is where I want to get some ideas. And maybe even maybe a NASA technology release makes sense, where we have a NASA body that moves a lot faster than the current CCB, but they inject technology and then they fold things back, similar to maybe some of the Linux releases. Again, we'd have to figure out how to make this work programmatically. But I could easily see, especially there's a lot of new apps in the wings, things getting tailored for specific user groups.
basic CubeSat, or this processor, this bus, this.
Goddard's trying to do that right now,
Okay.
right? That's the one effort I know of. I don't know if, I thought maybe Ames was doing it as well, but. Not that we've seen what you're doing, but.
Yeah, so, obviously that's the thing with that really the distribution is a whole package of, the platform, the core flight, and then the ground system.
Right.
And all that. So I think the kind of the educational outreach package you've done last year is kind of the first pass, but.
That's actually listed as a distribution on a later slide, right? That, to me, that is a distribution.
But I think obviously, if we have reference hardware platforms and start, and as Susie goes to renewal of ground software, it's like, okay, what do you ground software that we package into this with Susie not here and with Nicole? So, yeah.
So the big thing for us, I mean, we've
Oh,
had
you know what?
reference platforms, but they're
Yeah, there are
definitely
people
not
online.
interesting to other people. I think what you're talking about is having reference platforms that people can use to build and leverage.
There's online stuff too.
And so the big thing that I guess I was wondering about, and it would be good as a group, is that what we found is that let's just say we pick a Linux BeagleBone, okay, or Raspberry Pi, or picking some kind of other ARM Linux. The biggest thing is that there's usually not that much interesting stuff that's happening with it. And it would be good, as a community, even to come up with something simple, okay, something that's non-controversial that you could go ahead and release that would be that building block tool. And I think that's always been our biggest hurdle, is that we've been able to put something together, but it's kind of boring because it doesn't really do much at that particular point. And it would be good to do it as a turnkey, to be able to do that. And I agree also with some simple ground software. Now that, I know a lot of people have been looking at Cosmos, and so you now really do have a kind of completely open source solution that's in a box. But that would be, I think, getting some kind of simple model of doing something that you would be able to interact with would be useful at that point. And like I said, it would be interesting to see what that is. I mean, we have our own applications and things like that, but I'm not sure what it would be as a group would be interesting there.
Right, and I've actually put, but I put together an OpenSat kit that is Cosmos and CFS and a little bit of 42, which is a simulator. But my goal was educational as well, because I wasn't going to kill myself on my own time. But there is the NASA IVNV put together the NASA Operational SmallSat Simulator, which is much more industrial, and that's intentional to go through the life cycle. So they've also got it where you can do hardware in the loop. So, and I'm trying to look around, but there you go. couldn't gotcha. So they'll be here and talking about. We'll have a part of the poster session.
Well, you can talk about engaging vendors.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the other ideas at the small sat conference was actually talk to the hardware vendor to see if they want to put together a package for their hardware, like if you're going to use a nanomine or something like that. That's another way of doing it. So it's an integrated package that's ready to go, and they develop whatever device drivers they need for their hardware and then distribute it that way.
I think so. They weren't hearing.
Yeah.
Do we have a way of checking that? Is this for online hearing? Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I don't know if they have a feedback. I don't know if I need to go. I think I've already mentioned, so this was more, so the CCB is no longer collecting and maintaining just all assets. They're now managing in the framework, in minimalistic in scope, it provides specs. So we'd also want to, which I think I have on the next slide, they should publish how do you create a platform abstraction? And that way it gives instructions for people how to plug into the framework. And hopefully our app model will mature more where we could have a plug-in and even have automated tools for plugging in apps into the system. So those are the kind of, the things they'd be focusing on. And then distributors, I think I already mentioned, are complete and functional operational systems. And let's see, I think, yeah, so this kind of breaks down, what the CCB could control, if that's the right word. So system-wide, there's a command and telemetry database. Right now, what's out there is an assist database. And actually, there's an ITOS one as well. But ideally, if we go to electronic data sheets, we really just have a generic description of it rather than a specific implementation. And then the tools that would be at the system level really only need to be the make and an EDS, but other tools could be collected by a distributor, as opposed to just keep adding tools. And that's something that needs to be figured out, because there is a simple command and telemetry Python tool with CFE. And if people find it useful, we can still deliver it. But if there's these turnkey distributions, well, then nobody's going to ever touch a simple the Python thing, and it's really not needed. So at the application level, the sample applications would be useful, and I think they're also involved, and I don't know, some of the board members could answer better, in the verification of the CFE. I think the sample applications like lab scheduler and lab CI and TO lab are needed for that, so they might have to still be some set of applications. Then we'd still need, deliver the unit test assert, and maybe a simple app gen tool. But I would also see that being built into the distributions. Then the executive is our specification, and we already have, we got the API, we got the implementation, the unit test, the requirements, and the build test. Put a little note here. The ones that are delivered are, it's tied to the assist ground system. And eventually we could make build test suite that's runnable, maybe in a more generic way. And at the platform level, and this is one we've had a lot of discussions internally. We'd like to open up. How many platforms should the CCB manage? There's limited resources on verifying them. So what makes sense, and why is it a good complement? Right now we have the Linux and we have the VxWorks and the RTEMs, but FreeRTOS might be a good one to add. But again, somewhere it's got to either distribute the workload of verifying each release, but we should have rationale for why we even include certain ones. So challenges and next steps. I think I mentioned some of these. So we had the abstraction, so who's going to test and where. We'll create clear rules of engagement. And again, even if we have these technology distributions, it'd be nice to, we got to have a way of feeding that back. And how will the market evolve? And so if somebody else says, oh, I got this platform, well, they may not want to maintain it either. They did a one-off thing, and they just say, it's nice to let the community know about it, but I don't really want to be burdened with that either. Just as, NASA's struggling with the funding, they keep things going. So, and then, we've got to figure out, to build distributors, how, who's going to maintain these components is really the model. So we'll see how some of it might be a fun time to learn and see how it goes. So, and again, we got to design our website in alignment with this model, and we are currently doing that. Like I said, we got some draft catalogs, but we don't have we got to get a good registration system down, and is that automated? And even maintaining those catalogs gets to be another, if it's going to be useful, it's got to be current. So then, from a workflow, it'd be great if we said a new user went to the catalog, they looked at distribution. I get that. Then if they want to augment it with other catalog components, that would be great. So that would be kind of the new way, as opposed to going out and assembling everything and then creating your own distribution. So that's all I had right now. And anybody have any questions or comments that we want to discuss now? Or
So Dave, I don't know if this is working, but
right here.
so just for your information, because we went out and touched the catalog concept much later. I actually got a contact from a JAXA person who's or a Japanese. I'm not sure if he's actually affiliated with JAXA. A Japanese professor asking about CFS and SPN, and so just so you know, there is some activity on the site already. It's just it's not.
Oh,
certainly
okay.
to the volume
Good.
you're probably hoping for, but, you know, at least we're making some connections.
That's,
And I sent the info to Susie, but I can send it on to you. as
Okay,
to
no, that'd be
who's
great.
Looking at it. They're evaluating CFS for space missions, so.
and then I can update the annual blog, the one blog a year out on the quarter lights. Maybe that frequency might get a little.
Yeah, yeah.
So if anybody's interested in participating in the website itself too, honestly, we'll get that going. Did you want to say something? Oh.
Joe just came in.
Oh, look at that. Well, I don't know if he wants to take a breath. I literally finished. So you want Joe to go?
If Amtrak arrives within half an hour of its time, it's on time, right?
We can still go with my stuff and get him brief.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then next up will be Jonathan, who's the CFS architect. So he's been around since day one as well. And so he'll go and give you some technology roadmap. And with that. And that was Joe Hickey, who just walked in, who was also going to be doing 6.6, plenty hands on a lot of things today. And like I said, it'll be a little loose, the agenda, and as we talk even during breaks, if there's things people want to hear about.
So how do I get mine?
I'll go.